Recently, Australia was swept up in a sensational news story. A young woman from a wealthy background driving a Rolls-Royce caused a serious accident that injured the driver of a Mercedes. This incident was spun into an extravagant tale, alleging she paid a $70 million AUD bail instantly and was a member of China's elite red aristocracy with over $200 billion AUD in savings. Clearly, these figures are wildly exaggerated and don't withstand scrutiny. Yet, such dramatic numbers carry undeniable emotional weight, stirring resentment among some Chinese toward the Communist Party. Just days ago, a prominent online influencer confidently linked this story to China's ongoing deflationary crisis. He argued that the vast wealth moved overseas by these red elite families has caused a liquidity shortage, triggering deflation. At first, this reasoning might seem plausible. China's currency has been overissued for years, which should, in theory, lead to inflation. Yet, prices are falling. Could it be that the nation's wealth has been siphoned abroad by its elites? I must point out that this narrative is not only misleading but also veers into conspiracy theory territory. While opposition to the Communist Party is valid, it must be grounded in facts and reason. In this program, we'll objectively analyze whether capital flight by China's red elites is truly the primary cause of the country's deflation. If it isn't, what is its real impact? Let's begin by understanding how China's currency, the renminbi, circulates. Many envision the central bank printing money as presses churning out cash. In a modern economy, however, physical printing is a minor component of money creation. The People's Bank of China's balance sheet reveals how much new cash is issued annually, and this can be inferred from its reports. Consider the line item for currency issuance. Between January and June this year, the amount of currency in circulation actually declined. This indicates that the central bank destroyed more old notes than it printed new ones during this period. In other words, today's money supply isn't driven by physical cash. In a modern monetary system, the amount of money in circulation is determined by the base money created through the financial system. Take reserve requirement cuts, for example. When the central bank lowers the reserve ratio, it adjusts a figure in its ledger, enabling banks to issue more loans. These loans then circulate among businesses and individuals, creating a larger pool of broad money known as M2. This is the money multiplier effect. While the currency issuance line shows a decrease, China's M2 continues to grow because the banking system, not the printing press, is the true source of money supply. What happens then, if some renminbi flows overseas? First, it's important to note that renminbi cannot be used directly abroad. Capital flight typically follows this process. First, you exchange your renminbi for US dollars at a bank. Second, the bank either draws from its dollar reserves or requests foreign exchange from the central bank to provide those dollars. For large amounts, the central bank is involved. Third, when the bank gives you dollars, it collects your renminbi, which remains in the banking system. Fourth, if you withdraw a significant amount of dollars, the central bank taps its foreign exchange reserves, reducing the foreign exchange assets on its balance sheet and the reserve money on its liabilities side. In simpler terms, when you exchange renminbi for dollars and take them abroad, the renminbi you exchanged is absorbed by the bank, reducing the base money supply if the central bank takes no action. To maintain the money supply, the central bank can open another channel to release money, reintroducing the renminbi you exchanged into the market. How? The central bank can purchase bonds, issue new loans, or cut reserve requirements. If you withdraw $100 million, the central bank can release $100 million to stabilize the market. In practice, when significant capital flight occurs, the central bank typically counteracts it, but the extent depends on the renminbi's exchange rate. For instance, if you take out $1 billion, the central bank might decide that excessive tightening of liquidity is undesirable and release some money. But releasing the full $1 billion could weaken the renminbi, so it might release $500 million to offset part of the loss. A common approach. What's the conclusion? Capital flight does impact the domestic money supply, but the magnitude of that impact hinges on the central bank's willingness and ability to inject more money, not on the capital flight itself. Claiming that red elites moving money overseas cause deflation overlooks a critical point. The People's Bank of China has the technical capacity to replenish that money. The true drivers of deflation are the central bank's policy choices and domestic credit demand, with capital flight playing only an indirect role. Now, let's explore a more compelling angle. We've established that capital flight isn't the primary cause of China's deflation, though it may have a slight indirect effect. How significant is this indirect effect? The central bank's balance sheet provides answers. In the first half of this year, was the central bank injecting or withdrawing money? In January, reserve money stood at 38.87 trillion yuan, but by June, it had fallen to 37.9 trillion yuan, a reduction of about 1 trillion yuan. The central bank was tightening, not expanding the money supply. Where did this 1 trillion yuan go? Changes on the asset side of the balance sheet reveal the answer. A decrease in foreign exchange reserves indicates that someone exchanged renminbi for foreign currency, reducing renminbi liquidity. A decrease in the central bank's claims on financial institutions or the government suggests the bank actively withdrew money. The data shows that foreign exchange reserves dropped by about 350 billion yuan, claims on the government by about 500 billion yuan, and claims on the financial system by about 150 billion yuan, totaling 1 trillion yuan. Thus, the central bank not only failed to counteract the drop in foreign exchange reserves, but also actively withdrew additional renminbi. Imagine the central bank managing a reservoir. While someone siphons off water, the bank could open a valve to maintain the water level. Instead, it closed several valves, causing the level to drop faster. Why is China facing deflation this year? It's not because capital flight drained the money supply, but because the central bank, in response to capital flight, chose not to counteract it and further tightened liquidity. Why? Perhaps to stabilize the renminbi's exchange rate, a matter of monetary policy priorities. The notion that red elites moving money abroad caused deflation simplifies complex policy and market dynamics into an emotionally charged conspiracy narrative. It's effective for rallying public sentiment, but obscures the truth. Consider this: the Communist Party's elites have been moving wealth overseas for decades, not just the past 2 years. Why is deflation peaking now? Look at 2015 after the stock market crash, when the central bank's foreign exchange reserves fell by $1 trillion in a year, China's worst capital flight. Yet the CPI in 2016 still rose by 2%. Where was the deflation? The central bank implemented aggressive countermeasures, cutting reserve requirements multiple times and injecting liquidity to ensure an ample renminbi supply, stabilizing prices. Why is China experiencing deflation now? Credit demand has collapsed, people are disengaged, and the central bank's monetary policy is ineffective. Released money stagnates in the banking system, rendering it useless. Since China's reform and opening up, M2 has grown by over 300 trillion yuan, dwarfing the wealth moved overseas by red elites. Even if these elites returned their trillions of dollars to Chinese banks, would deflation end? No. Money trapped in the financial system not flowing into production or consumption has no economic impact. Unless these elites distribute their wealth to every Chinese citizen, handing out tens of thousands of dollars each, it might stimulate the economy. But let's be frank. Even if they kept their renminbi in China, they wouldn't share it with ordinary people. Whether their money stays or goes, it makes no difference. It won't rescue China's economy. In summary, China's deflation may appear linked to capital flight, but a closer look at the numbers reveals the true culprits: a collapse in credit demand, weak domestic consumption, and tighter monetary policy. Capital flight exists and has some effect, but it's not the main driver nor the final blow to China's economy. Conspiracy theories thrive because their simple, evocative narratives point to a clear villain offering an outlet for frustration. But reality is more intricate. Allowing emotions to guide us risks overlooking the policy signals, economic trends, and institutional factors that shape our lives. I've taken the time to dissect this logic not to defend the Communist Party but to urge us to avoid using its tactics against it. Especially on economic matters, we should cultivate a habit of asking 3 questions when confronted with a claim. First, where is the data? Are there facts and figures to support it? Second, does the logic hold? Are critical steps omitted? Third, are there larger forces at play driving the outcome? By addressing these questions, we can uncover the root of the issue and resist being swayed by inflammatory rhetoric. Opposing the Communist Party is justified, but it must be done with reason and evidence. Spreading false claims about red elites holding hundreds of billions in overseas accounts undermines our credibility. Ultimately, what are we opposing? The Communist Party as an entity, or the flaws it embodies? If we target only the party, a new authoritarian regime could replace it. But if we oppose its flaws, we must hold ourselves to a higher standard, avoiding its methods to guide China toward true democracy. Thanks for watching and joining us on this journey to unveil China's many layers. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated. See you in the next video.